Well, howdy folks, and welcome back to the channel. I want to quickly send a huge thanks and a shout out to some of my supporters out there. Thanks so much to Eric Hutchinson, William Tucker, and Dallas Strickland for their membership to the PI Guide channel. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. If you would like to get more information on how you can support the channel and get some great perks as well with a membership, then click the join button down below. Also, folks, let me say, just watching and liking my videos shows huge support too, and I appreciate all of you for watching, liking, subscribing, and supporting the channel. Now, it is a bit cold out there today, folks. When I got up, it was 12 below zero. That was the temperature in Fahrenheit, not the wind chill. So, to say the least, it is a bit cold out there today. So I will not be out hunting scoundrels or chasing fraudsters today. Well, at least not this early anyway. Today I wanted to slow down a bit, grab a cup of coffee, and answer some viewers' questions. I do appreciate all of your questions and comments, and I try to like and heart them all. But answering them all on YouTube has become a bit daunting, so I will try to make a video from time to time answering some of your questions. And if I use your question in a video, I will probably give you a shout out too. First, a comment from Jay Hart. Love your content. Thank you for creating the channel. I'm just starting out myself and working on my OSINT skills, so your content is invaluable. Do you ever do lives and take questions from channel members? Great question, and thanks so much for the kind comments as well. I have considered doing a live stream, but have at this time decided to not do it, as it would add quite a bit more onto my already busy schedule, and I am not sure it would be able to be viewed by many of my viewers. This is mostly due to the fact that we are all business owners, entrepreneurs, or have jobs, and finding a good time that fits everyone's schedule would be a bit difficult. But no fear, Jay Hart, I do these videos from time to time answering viewers' questions, so feel free to leave a question anytime in the comments and I will do my best to answer it on one of my upcoming videos. Ryan Oneful riddled me this. Odd question. What happens if you are tailing a really attractive girl and she thinks you are some kind of a pervert watching her? Odd question, but it could happen. Yes, Ryan, it could, and it probably has many times with PIs. First off, let me state I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on YouTube, and my comments are only my personal opinion and should not be considered legal advice. That said, I always caution everyone to make sure you follow people in a discreet and safe manner. This is safe for you as well as your subject. When it comes to my subject realizing they are being followed, or in other words, I know I am burned regardless of who the subject is, I pull off the investigation right away. Now, I may be able to go back out with a different vehicle later, but that depends on a lot of other factors as well. I also highly advise that you always call into the police when you start your surveillance. I know this is a controversial subject, but it is for this exact type of situation that I usually call in. Calling in, make sure you have an official record of where you are and what you are doing before an issue arises. If your subject gets suspicious and gets scared and calls the cops, you will have a lot of explaining to do. And you know what? If they charge you with stalking, harassment, or whatever, and arrest you, and you get to spend some quality time in the pokey, it doesn't really matter if you were right or wrong. The damage has been done. And in today's day and age, I can also guarantee you the media would be all over it and you would be exposed to the world. And the court of public opinion has no rules or regulations that bind them, guilty or innocent. Now, Rico S. asked me, what if laws were broken? Is a PI required to report to law when their clients break the law? What if your client wants you to break the law? Great questions indeed, Rico. Let me take these on one at a time here. First, as I stated earlier, I am not an attorney, nor do I play one on YouTube, and my comments are only my personal opinion and should not be considered legal advice. First, is a PI required to report to law enforcement when their client breaks the law? This is going to be dependent on your state PI licensing as well as any other laws in the state and client confidentiality requirements. But it may also be dependent on what law was broken too. If your client committed a capital crime, well, there's a lot to be said about that. But then, who is your client? Is your client a defendant in a criminal matter and you discovered evidence through your criminal defense case that the client is guilty or that the client committed another crime? In this event, no, you're not required to report it to anyone. In fact, as a criminal defense investigator, you could be held liable for doing that. You see, your investigation is confidential client work product in most cases. Now, for criminal defense cases, I would never work for the defendant directly. I would only work for their attorney. Working for the defendant directly could make you a third party, and all your work could become discoverable. Whereas if you are working for the defense attorney, your work is protected client work product and is protected as such. As part of the defense team for the defendant, your job is to, defend the defendant. Much like the prosecutor has to, prosecute the defendant. And their job is to prove the defendant did the deed. And the defense's team is not to prove the defendant did anything. So in the event I uncover evidence on the defendant that would shine less than a positive light on the defendant, I would simply make the attorney aware of my findings. I would also only do this verbally, in person or on the phone, never in a report or anything else that could eventually become discoverable. Now, what if the client wants me to break the law? Well, sorry, Charlie, you may have the wrong guy for your investigation. I would never break the law, intentionally or not, in the course of an investigation. First, it becomes a matter of honor and values. Secondly, there are huge legal ramifications. If I gather evidence through illegal means, they are not permissible in court. If the illegal means in which I gathered the evidence is discovered, all of my investigation would be thrown out and my credibility with the court would be nil. As well, I could be prosecuted myself for breaking the law, and other charges could apply as far as licensing and other legal concerns. And you know what? The client isn't going to defend you. In fact, if the client is an attorney, even if they asked you to break the law, if you are caught, they will throw you under the bus in court to defend their client. Now I see another question from Rico X. Can a PI still surveil a person if they have a restraining order or if a person claims they are the victim of stalkers? This is tricky to say the least, Rico. In most cases, most PIs will not take a case where a restraining order is in place against the client, and I generally follow this rule, but there is an exception for me. First off, it will depend a great deal on state and local laws, where you reside, and your licensing requirements. But my one exception, and I don't take the case just because it meets this exception, is if I am working for an attorney and I feel the case is worthy. This again goes to the protections of client work product. Now, before you go out and do any surveillance on a protected individual, make sure you have conferred with your own legal counsel on the matters, not the client attorney, your own attorney. Because you know what? Your client ain't going to defend you in court. If you end up in court, you better have a good attorney to defend their advice that they provided to you. So if I take one of these cases, and it's very rare, I have maybe done 2 or 3 my entire life, I first have to have a contract with the attorney and his client with a good indemnification clause in it. If you need a good contract with this and a lot more, then check out my book, Contracts for Private Investigators, Secrets No One Else Will Tell You. My book walks you through the process of writing your very own rock-solid PI contract, or you can use the template provided in the book as is. If I do take this type of case, I also stay way back, further than the distance stated in the restraining order. It is also usually stationary surveillance only, no mobile. I only gather evidence when it is absolutely safe to do so, and if I feel for any reason the surveillance is compromised, I end the investigation immediately. I also do not do partial days. The client pays for full 8-hour shifts, and the fee is double, plus mileage and travel time, report and video editing time, and the retainer is non-refundable. Now, Bob Stringer had asked me what the privacy and security benefits of using a de-Googled phone are. First, let's answer the question of what a de-Googled phone is anyway. This is a smartphone that runs Android usually, but all of the Google proprietary software and components are taken out. This would include the phone not having Google Play Store, carrier services, and a lot of other things that make most Android phones what they call Google certified. Now, this does limit your phone a bit in the comparison of how you probably usually use it, or should I say, what apps you use and how you access information with your phone. Privacy is the number one reason most people go to a de-Googled phone. De-Googled phones tend to have enhanced memory management. They usually have better encryption built in beyond what standard Android phones offer, and they still deliver that modern phone experience that you're used to. A de-Googled phone is, by its own nature, built with security in mind, not allowing your data to get out or compromised, and remaining secure while still affording you the comfort of a smartphone. The downside to a de-Googled phone, well, first, it's de-Googled. So many people, myself included, rely heavily on companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, and others to help us with our day-to-day lives and our business needs. This help also comes with some security risks, to be sure. Hackers tend to attack the most used systems to begin with. As well, those folks writing software for nefarious purposes target those more common operating systems, phones, tablets, laptops, and computers. That means, for instance, tracking or spying on a person with a Googled phone is much easier to do than if they have a de-Googled phone. Another question Bob has asked me was, how would you conduct a mobile surveillance knowing that your subject is leaving early in the morning and driving to another state and there's no way out as your client demanded that you follow them? Also, you can't use GPS tracking or hack their mobile phone. Wow, Bob, thanks for the great question. Well, first let me say, I am in charge of my investigations, not my clients. If my client is demanding something unreasonable, I fire my client. Again, it goes back to my contract. I have clauses that allow me to end the contract for any reason or for no reason. I also have a clause about client interference too. Now, I have not had to fire many clients in my career, and I don't foresee having to do much of that in the future either. But back to the question, if the surveillance requires an early morning start, then it gets an early morning start. Most surveillance investigators are quite accustomed to the wee hours of the morning. Depending on the situation, I may require 2 investigators to work the case. 1 eyes on the subject residence, 1 outside waiting to take the tail. If you have intel like this, you probably know what state they may be going to, and you could formulate a good strategy for the follow depending on what routes the subject may take. I would also check PI license reciprocity with the state that they are going to. If there is no reciprocity, then I would require that we also hire a PI or 2 in the other state to take over the surveillance once we cross the state line. Early morning follows and late night follows can be quite tricky indeed, as it is a lot easier for a subject to take notice of you if your vehicle is the only other vehicle on the road for some distance. Maintaining that distance and not letting them get a good look at your face is good to do. And if you have 2 investigators, it is easy to let the subject exit a highway or a freeway, drive on past him, and let the second pick up the tail. Provided, of course, you can get turned around and back in the game quick enough. Now, I made a video a while back on counter surveillance techniques, and knowing these techniques is a good thing for surveillance investigators, so you can tell if your subject is getting suspicious. So check this video out now.